Picture this. You just got a new job and you are super pumped up about it. However, the first day of work, your excitement slowly fades as your boss lists out all these unnecessary rules and guidelines that you must follow in order to even keep your job. If you are male, you'll be paid more. You'll have an authority, or you will have a position of authority, and you will also get a raise more rapidly than your female counterparts. However, you must never show your feelings. You must never talk about your emotions to anybody, and you must always wear the colors blue, black, or gray. If you are female, you will never make as much as the males, you will never have a position of authority, and you must always wear pink or purple. However, you can freely discuss your emotions, you can talk about your feelings with your coworkers and boss, and having friends in the workplace is highly encouraged. Though this might seem like a scenario that is absolutely not true, it might not be as big of a fantasy as you think. According to Anthony Giddens in his 2016 textbook called Introduction to Sociology, gender is defined as social expectations about behavior regarded as appropriate for the members of each sex. So as Americans, there are lots of stereotypes that may be pinned to whatever gender you classify yourself as. If you are male, you are expected to be financially stable, you are not supposed to show your emotions to people, and you are supposed to have some sort of position of authority. If you are female, you aren't expected to be as financially stable, you can show your emotions, and you must be a comforter to others while doing all the housework duties. So, based on this, it is easy to see that stereotypes and gaps are not one-sided, but two-sided. They happen whether you are male or female. So our group has encountered these stereotypes in our everyday lives. And because of this, we have realized that these gaps are oftentimes two-sided. So because of this, today we will help you understand how society should not completely reconstruct the roles of genders because some aspects to both genders are great for society. So in order to help you guys see where we're coming from, we will first talk about the economical gaps that happen between male and female. Next, we'll move on to the social differences between male and female, and lastly, we will discuss the psychological effects that these may have on us. So I hope that you guys, with this information, have a new outlook and understand some of the gaps that are in place, how they are not one-sided but two-sided, and how they affect us in our everyday lives. So to understand our point of view, we will first take a look at some of the economic gender gaps.
Okay, so talking about gender inequality, what is the first thing you guys think of? Typically, you'll think of the pay wage inequality, in that women make less than men do typically. And there are facts to back this up. And so according to the AAW, they published an article called The Simple Truth About the Pay Wage Gap, or the Pay Gap, stated that in 2016, women were typically paid 80% of what men were paid. Obviously, that's not equal pay. And this is especially true for middle-skill occupations. So women will make 66% of what men, so in like women jobs, than men will make in men jobs. So they'll make only 66% of that. And this is still a factor, even though the Equal Pay Act was enacted in 1963. And it stated that women who are in the same organization working the same job must receive the same pay as men do in that same position. So you say, well, how's this 20% differential existing when they're supposed to be paid the same? And that could be attributed to the glass ceiling. So this is a thing. It's an unofficial, acknowledgeable thing where if you're trying to advance in a profession, it's just this ceiling or wall. Once you get to a certain position, you'll no longer be able to rise in this position. With that history and background that I talked about, I'm going to go into how education and pay play a role in the inequality. So we're all in college, and we're all here because we want to go into specified fields, and we want to make a certain amount of money, or more money than we would with just a high school education. And they say education is tied to earnings, and for the most part, that has been true throughout history. But it's no longer true, because in the past, women had less education than men did. And that's kind of, they attributed that to this gap. They're like, well, since women have less education, they get paid less. But that's no longer a valid argument, because now women have higher education levels than men do. So this doesn't make sense that they're still paid less. If anything, they should be paid more because they have higher education. And so this is an issue, but there has been greater labor force participation amongst women. So there are more women in the workforce, so that can contribute to the gap becoming more narrow, although it is still an issue and it needs improvement. And then there's gender segregation across occupations. So there's jobs that men typically do and women typically do, such as construction. If you go to a construction site right now, for example, how many women are you going to see there? Probably not too many. And same goes for jobs that women would typically do. And so women, for the most part, have been in charge of household activities. Like, that's kind of what the standard is that people say. So we have not considered the time that it takes women to do household activities or care for their children. Women typically have had to been the caretakers of their families while men are supporting the families, per se. And that's an issue because women have to take hours out of their schedules to make time for their children and take care of their children. And so some industries have not made progress on this gender integration. So there's jobs, like I said, construction. They have not made any progress to allow women to join these labor forces. So there's no women being, like, if they want to be construction workers, then they're still not allowed to join those. Excuse me, I got allergies. They're not allowed to join those occupations just because they're a woman or a man joining a woman's job force. And according to the IWPR, equal pay would cut poverty among working women and their families in half and add over $500 billion to the national economy. So with that being said, I feel like the simple solution to this is give women equal opportunity. They should be able to have the same pay as men through the Equal Pay Act, obviously, and I think that needs to have some revision and some reevaluation. And I think Congress should take that into their own hands to kind of take action and address these issues. And so now that we discussed economic gaps, we can now move into social differences.
There have always been roles believed to be specific to each gender in a family, such as maybe your mom stayed home with you when you were kids and your dad was the main breadwinner. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 28% of mothers are stay-at-home mothers, and that leaves the rest of them to have working counterparts. If more of the mothers worked full-time or part-time, then the household duties would be distributed evenly between the mother and father or the two parents in the household, which when they're stay-at-home mothers, it falls mostly on the mothers to care for the house and care for the children. And then of the mothers that were interviewed, the 28%, all of them said that they would at least like to be working part-time, if not full-time, therefore distributing the household duties evenly. Now, something that we are all facing right now, or will be facing, is the social scene, and in reference specifically to dating. Dr. Julie Long, a sociology lecturer, says the quest of payment on a first date has roots in notions of chivalry, which is rooted in male economic and social power, involves rituals of men treating women with elaborate regard and politeness, and serves to mask that men dominate public sphere and have social economic power over women. As women, we can't go out on a date and expect to be paid for. We have to go in with the mindset that I am equal, I can afford, and I can provide for myself, so therefore I'm not going to expect this gentleman to pay for my part of the date or all of it. Going into a date with that mindset, saying I deserve to be catered to, does not allow us to bridge the gap that we are fighting to bridge. It's an age-old stigma, and times are changing, and this is not allowing us to close the gap. So to help close this gap in reference to household and parenting, we can assign chores, and it is shown that when you assign chores to children, it distributes the feeling of responsibility. And Bill Murray on Inc.com says, a roll up your sleeves and pitch in mindset, a mindset that says, there's some unpleasant work, someone's got to do it, it might as well be me. That's what gets you ahead in the workplace. So this is giving the idea that no matter what gender your children are, if you assign household duties such as laundry or dishes, it shows them that no matter if they're a boy or a girl, it's their responsibility to take care of their surroundings. And in reference to dating, like I said, us women can go into the idea of offering to pay or paying for just our half and not expecting the man to pay and allowing us to have a little bit of independence. Now, because we have a better understanding of social gaps, we will finally dive into how these gaps affect us psychologically.
In recent article in Washington of Jenna McGregor writes about the wage gap and how research may suggest that it is tied to anxiety and depression. One example of this that Chase already talked about was the home care and child care. A lot of those burdens fall on the woman. They can fall on the husband, but they normally don't. It's typically the mother that takes care of the home and the child while the husband works. And in a study by in a journal, Social Sciences and Medicine found that women with lower income with male counterparts was 4 times more likely to have anxiety and 2.4 times more likely to report depression. Although this study did find similar results when the wage gaps were similar, domestic violence is another huge issue in the United States and can have a huge toll, which is strangely correlated to the wage gap. But 14 women are battered every day and 4 are killed in America. We found that women who make under $10,000 are 5 times more likely to be in a domestic violence situation than women who make over $30,000. And 25% of all of the domestic violence is from the male counterpart. Just some more about the studies that I found. The wage gap tied to domestic violence is, I found about 2 of them, which he did a research experiment in Africa where they took women who were making less money and were in domestic violences and put them through a financial facilitation where they learned how to manage money better, so they'd have the same aptitude as their husbands. And then it dropped dramatically. So just knowing about money and how money works, not necessarily making enough money, at least in the Africa experiment, but knowing about money and how much it works helps. Now that we've talked about psychological effects.
Alright, so society should not completely reconstruct the roles of genders in society because both genders bring aspects of society that they can only bring. But society should value each gender while taking a look at particular generations and making accommodations as to what is acceptable in society. So, for our 3 main points, Chase, he went over the innate problem in our economical imbalances. Maddie here hit the social problems that have been set up by generations before us, and Jason touched on the psychological effects and the effects in our culture and our society. We also gave solutions to each problem that will give us a step forward in the specific direction that we're looking to take. So as we conclude, we want to change all you guys' your views on men and women in society. Men, let's take a step back. Let's swallow our pride and let's change our expectation of what men should be in society. And women, as Beyonce said it, you guys run the world. You guys are the gateway to creation. You guys have exponentially grown our society. So we want to look at the contemporary of our world and not be based on biases, but look in a particular direction and say whoever it is, they can do whatever they need to do and fulfill that duty. Thank you.